So North Carolina passed legislation to explore buying precious metals and Bitcoin. What are your thoughts and positions on this? Well, I know you're a big crypto guy, Shannon. So what are your thoughts on North Carolina passing legislation to explore, maybe not necessarily buying, precious metals and Bitcoin?
It's kind of a weird question for me. So I'm okay with any government getting into decentralized currency, but it's not really up to the government. The thing about Bitcoin is that it is for the people, by the people, and it doesn't have government control. The government may have an interest in it. They may be able to apply pressure at central exchanges. They may be able to make all these laws, but they can't really stop what's going on. Now, there's a lot of countries like Brazil who are switching their money over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is basically the gold standard for cryptocurrencies. And it moves before everything else does. When it goes up, all the other tokens go up. When it goes down, all the other tokens. So it's kind of the leader in the market. But it also offers a lot of benefit, and not just Bitcoin itself. When we're looking at things when we look at blockchain, for instance, expanding just outside of just Bitcoin, we're able to create systems that are transparent, that you can see how the data flows, what happened. It's immutable, which means it can't be changed. So we can actually use technology very similar to that to improve a lot of our government systems. But having the government stockpile Bitcoin or whatever, I don't necessarily have a problem with it as long as they're not stealing it from people like the federal government does. You know, when they go in with their raids, they find Bitcoin or whatever, then they'll take it all and they stick it in their bank in California.
You mean theft is bad?
I believe theft is bad. I think that if you own something, you have the right to keep it, and that somebody can't just come in and take it. But, the government has different plans for that. So it's kind of I like to see the state get involved with crypto. It's the future of our world, not necessarily the future of our country, because where I see our country isn't necessarily in government. It's going to be more in technology companies, and so I think we have a huge paradigm shift going over in the next 20 years on who the real power players are. I think a lot of that's going to be dictated by crypto and blockchain. So I don't really. I'll have to go back and read to see what the purpose and the benefits are of what they're exploring. But I do commend them for looking into it to possibly find some benefits. And hopefully it's not with closed eyes so that they're going to try to come in and over-regulate it and stifle it, because they can try to do that. But the people who actually understand the system, you can't control those people. You would only really kind of control the normal people.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic that is not for everybody. It is something that, as a moderator discretion, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about, because I find it personally fascinating. But in the issue of fairness, you get three and a half minutes for your take on the matter. From a financial services perspective, the idea that North Carolina is exploring buying precious metals and Bitcoin, what are your thoughts on that? And where do you see this technology going in the future for the benefit, or lack thereof, of the people of North Carolina?
Yeah, absolutely. So the short answer is that I think that the government needs to be out of the money business. We've run into so much problem with the Federal Reserve and this printing of fiat, where you save money when we're at $10 trillion in debt. You build up a nice nest egg, get ready to retire, and then the government prints $20 trillion more dollars. Well, if you look at the actual net effect, you just cut that person's wealth by 2/3, right? It disincentivizes saving and investing. I don't want the government controlling these things. However, there are a few scopes that I think within the functions that the government is the government of North Carolina is currently doing. And I had a conversation at the LPNC convention with Falwell when he came to speak on that as our treasurer. He's very anti-Bitcoin. I think that the role that they should have is kind of the same one I use in my practice as a professional asset manager. Gold and silver and Bitcoin are at this point some pretty darn big asset classes that have been around long enough that, for the pensions of the employees and things like that the government's investing, I kind of feel like they're silly there. If I wasn't a libertarian and I believed in force, I could see some potential value there if North Carolina was trying to protect citizens against a CBDC or overreach by the Fed, just printing more money and creating an alternative, say, North Carolina dollar. And if they wanted to back that with a box of silver, gold, Bitcoin, maybe state-owned real estate and everything else, so that North Carolinians had an alternative where maybe you peg it to the dollar on day one, and if the Fed keeps printing and North Carolina starts backing their currency with assets, I think the people of North Carolina would just choose the North Carolina dollar. But again, that's kind of growing government, and I'm really much more in the business of trying to reduce the impact and allow free market currencies to take hold. I think the biggest thing that I would do as governor is try to tear down all of the government barriers that prevent us from being able to use those alternative currencies in the first place. We used to have a choice to use whatever currency we wanted, and if I went to that store and said, hey, will you take my gold backs? Can I send you some Satoshi? The government made that really, really hard, and we need to break down those barriers, because if you do that, people will be able to protect themselves from the Fed and won't need the state of North Carolina to protect them from it.